Hey guys, how you doing? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all those around the world. Welcome back to another Pokemon Unite video featuring Venusaur here in Master Rank. We're also doing a Master Rank guide, so hopefully you guys are interested. Let's dive right into it. So the way this build setup works for my Venusaur, the way I like to run Venusaur, I go all tank items. Sounds crazy, but hear me out. So a lot of people, they run DPS items on Venusaur. Like I'm talking Wise Glasses, Choice Specs, Shell Bell, what have you. Now that works in a mindset where you're playing Solar Beam, right? It works for Petal Dance. But try running tank items. If you guys want to climb ranks, you guys want to survive team fights, especially when you're the only person who's actually engaging and your team is derping around somewhere else, you will have more success running tank items on Venusaur in that mindset. That way you can actually sustain a little bit longer before your team gets there and tries to back you up or just derps around and, attacks Ladinos while you're doing a team fight, and you die anyway. But you will get more value and benefit out of it if you're tankier in this build setup. So what this does is, the lower the HP that you have, once you're like 30% of HP, you get an increased damage by 20%, right? So while you're inside of that team fight, while you're getting, taking damage, what have you, you're already bulky enough, right, with items. But again, the lower your HP in that situation, the more damage you deal. Now, when it comes to Sludge Bomb, you generally take Sludge Bomb. It just lowers the special defense and movement speed of enemy Pokemon that's in the area. No big deal. I mean, that's it, right? You take this item generally, like when you throw it on an objective, like a Dreadnought, Rotom, or Zapdos, what have you, throw it into the enemy team, it slows them down, lowers their defenses. You kind of want to use this to combo up with your other Pokemon in your squad who do special attack damage, which is generally like everybody. So this helps you in that sense. And then it also allows you to line up Solar Beams if you're inside, like melee range with Venusaur while you're running Solar Beam for some reason. Now, Solar Beam is essentially a snipe ability that can shoot across majority of the map, and it does a huge amount of damage, especially if you're all DPS with Solar Beam. Ability is actually really good for sniping objectives as well. It's good for finishing off targets. It does a huge amount, like a straight burst when you hit somebody. It hits multiple targets at the same time as well. And when you upgrade it, it just reduces the cooldown of this ability. Alright, nothing special on that note, right? We're here talking about Giga Drain, and we're here talking about Petal Dance, the way that this build will perform with this build setup. Now, what Giga Drain does is, it lowers the damage you take while you hit an enemy Pokemon. So if you hit an enemy Pokemon with Giga Drain, you can hit multiple targets with this ability. It shoots off in a cone. The more targets you hit, the more HP you will recover. Now, at the end of the day, this does not account for wild Pokemon, if that makes sense. This does not account for wild Pokemon. Meaning, when you hit this ability, while Petal Dance is active, Petal Dance does not trigger the cooldown on this ability towards wild Pokemon. Now, in other words, if you use this ability on enemy Pokemon, right, and Petal Dance is spinning around, every tick of Petal Dance that does damage to an enemy Pokemon will lower the cooldown of Giga Drain. Okay, keep that in mind. So that way, the bulkiness of the item setup that you're running on Venusaur allows you to stay up longer. Therefore, Giga Drain versus Petal Dance, cooldown, keeps you up in that team fight. Therefore, you're dealing more damage. The tankier you are, the more damage you will deal inside that team fight. Now, this ability is really strong, but your passive does not increase the healing that this ability gives you. I know your passive gives you more damage, but your passive does not give you more healing. Alright, keep that in mind. So Petal Dance, the way this works is it gives you a burst of movement speed. And everyone inside of your Petal Dance AoE will take damage as long as you are within that vicinity. Every time Petal Dance lands DPS on a target, it has to be an enemy Pokemon. Now, once that does, it will lower the cooldown of your other abilities. Meaning, like I said, Giga Drain. But, again, if you die while I have Petal Dance active, you get no value. This is why I like running up the tanky setup with Venusaur, because therefore you're alive longer, you can deal more DPS. And it's, like I said, in the solo queue mindset, this build works wonders just because, generally speaking, you're the only person who's rotating for your objectives, right? Let's put it like that. Let's say in that sense, you're the only person that's rotating. Now, if that's the case, wouldn't you much rather be a bulkier setup than just to run in there with Petal Dance and just get yourself killed? 9 out of 10, let's be fair. So for this build, you generally run Buddy Barrier for obvious reasons. That way you give yourself a giant shield, or your teammates or what have you. You run Focus Band, because that way when you get lower HP, you can heal up a little bit. Now, we're also running Assault Vest. Assault Vest can be interchanged, like I said, heal me out, for Rocky Helmet or for this item right here. These are my two tanky items that I would suggest you run on Venusaur. Now, I know Rocky Helmet isn't used that often, right? It's not. A lot of people like to disregard Rocky Helmet, but don't knock it until you try it. I'm trying to tell you, Rocky Helmet is actually really good on Venusaur. It does damage back to the enemy Pokemon 5% of their maximum HP. It gives you a flat amount of HP and it gives you a flat amount of defense. This item is really good on tanky Pokemon. You can also argue weakness policy, but again, Giga Drain is a special attack damage, so this doesn't necessarily help you with that. It does give you more HP and it helps your auto attacks, but that's about it. But in any case, guys, let's dive right into it. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let's get into the gameplay. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to another Pokemon Unite video. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone around the world. Today we're playing Venusaur here in the jungle in a Master Rank game. We're doing a brand new Venusaur Masters Guide. For those of you that have been interested, have been asking questions about how I fare with Venusaur, what is my thoughts and opinions on Venusaur, we will go over it in this game today. Now, I did show you guys my different build choices and what I enjoy playing on Venusaur. In this game particularly, we are running Rocky Helmet, we are running Buddy Barrier, and Focus Band. I like to build my Venusaur ridiculously tanky, like the tankiest I can get them when it comes to items. Now, Rocky Helmet's like level 25, so it's not maxed out yet. But at the same time, whose Rocky Helmet is, you know what I mean? I got plenty of resources. I play pretty much every day, you know what I mean? So resources are easy to come by. Anyway, when it comes to Venusaur in the jungle, his jungle clear is not very efficient. Meaning he can do it no problem, but he's rather like, he's not the fastest at it. Generally, you finish the jungle maybe like a 905 or give or take like close to 9 with these tanky items. I mean, you still are in time for bees, you still are in time for the speed boost in the mid lane. Now, again, being this tanky, I can sit here and survive this with no problem. And thankfully, my team was actually paying attention there, so I might have been in trouble. Now, with red buff, once you get red buff on Venusaur, it's very hard to get away from him, especially with Petal Dance. Now, again, you don't do very much DPS, but you can sit here and soak up a lot of damage, and that's the game plan. You want to sit here and soak up as much damage as you can and get off as many Giga Drains as you possibly can to get yourself sustained. The longer you are alive in that team fight, the more valuable you are for your team. Now, you could argue you could go full DPS, sure, but then you're like a piece of paper when you run in there. Now, like I said, you can sit there and do Giga Drains, no problem, but at the end of the day, like, if you can't sustain yourself due to how squishy you are, it's not going to matter. And the way Giga Drain works is the more that you hit an enemy Pokemon with Petal Dance. So if you hit multiple targets, it will lower the cooldown on Giga Drain. And that's why I enjoy going tanky, so I can sit here in the mix of things and hit multiple targets with Petal Dance and spam Giga Drain. The way your passive works with Venusaur, we went over it a minute ago, it's different though, because not a lot of people understand how this works. The lower your HP is, the more damage you will deal. So 30% of your HP, the more damage you deal. And keep in mind though, just because you deal more damage with your passive ability, your passive does not increase the amount of healing you receive, alright, on your Giga Drain. Just in case you guys didn't know that. Also, at the same time, Petal Dance, like I said, if it hits multiple targets, it will lower the cooldown on your abilities, allows you to sustain yourself more inside team fights. They did nerf Venusaur, whereas they nerfed the damage on Giga Drain and the cooldown and what have you previously, just because how he was running rampant within the metagame. And he still is very strong, and a lot of people would consider him still S tier, but I don't like to think so anymore. I think he's more so like he's a balanced Pokemon now. But at the same time, in the hands of a good player, this Pokemon can be absolutely, how you say, like, can pressure you very hard, you know, in lane, especially if Venusaur is really good. You can put out a lot of pressure just because he knows how to play the Pokemon. And don't forget, I mean, the Pokemon's not that difficult, right? But when you're sitting here climbing within ranks, you see a lot of Venusaur players, right? They just run in there with Petal Dance and be like, I'm gonna kill everybody. It doesn't work like that, guys. It really doesn't. I appreciate that Buddy Barrier right there. You know, it was really good timing. Now, you could run in there essentially when you're bulky, when you have the bulky items, the tank items. That way you can do something for your squad. And when you're doing these solo queue games, you don't have to always rely on your team to run it. You know what I mean? Especially when most of the games you play, everyone just wants to play attack damage Pokemon, right? Nobody wants to play tanks, let's be fair. So it's a lot harder to sit here and play Venusaur and run all damage items when you get a lineup like that. Because when you run in, you're either going to die or your teammates are going to follow you and then die because you're not playing, you know, tanky, or you don't have a front line. You're essentially the only front line. So you run in there, you do the engage, right? So you have to be mindful what items you're running, what your opponent's cooldowns are, and what have you. And I know you can't really track all that because a lot of the Pokemon here get their Unite moves really, really quickly. I'm talking about you Talonflame, you know what I mean? Like you kill a Pokemon, he Unite moves, he comes back, he Unite moves. A lot of Pokemon's Unite moves charge are really, really quick. So being a bulky Venusaur, you can just sit up in this fight, you can take a lot of damage. Now I have noticed by playing Venusaur, I get a lot of like knockbacks and crowd control coming your way. So when you're doing that, you're trying to sit here and do a Giga Drain or what have you, the slightest bump kind of interrupts your Giga Drain and you have to try to press the button again. Maybe it doesn't happen to everybody, maybe it's a bug, but especially with Pokemon like Blastoise, if you're in that animation in Giga Drain and you try to do it and he surfs you, it doesn't go through half the time. But again, you're able to sit here and soak up so much DPS. Most of the time you can sit here and 1v1 any Pokemon in the game. You can sit here and take Blastoise's Unite move, and we all know how much damage it does, even though it got nerfed and he's a tank. Now, Venusaur is in a very, very good spot in the metagame. You just have to be mindful of who your counters are, who you have a hard time with, and there's not very many Pokemon that legit just counter you straight up. There's not very many of them. Now, you could argue Greninja can give you a hard time. He can give you a hard time with Double Team if he's actually pretty good and you go off on the wrong Greninja. But keep in mind, one Giga Drain on all those clones heals you so much. And at the same time, Petal Dance is triggering off all those Greninja clones. They're lowering your cooldown, guys. Now, Zeraora does give Venusaur a hard time, especially with his Unite move up, and it's up, you know, pretty often. And if he's running Discharge, it can do a lot of damage and burst you down really, really quick if you're unprepared for it. But if you're running, like I said, the right build and you have your cooldowns available, you shouldn't have an issue with it. I do still struggle with Charizards, and you know, everyone should struggle with Charizards because 9 out of 10 he has his Unite move, and you cannot sustain yourself when it comes to Charizard and his Unite move. Even as Venusaur, he will still burn you down, so be wary of that. And any Pokemon that can sit here and crowd control you exponentially, like Crustle can give you a hard time too. Especially if he's running damage, if he's running a crit build, he can give you a hard time, and he has his Unite move up for that shield. But other than that, you really don't have that many counters right now. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but as long as you have Petal Dance up, you can chase down any target. You get red buff on Petal Dance, they're not getting away from you. So essentially, Venusaur right now is in a very, very good spot to climb, let alone up to master rank. Just be careful when you're playing him in lower tiers. Like I said beforehand, you may be the only Pokemon that's running into that team fight and trying to engage or disengage or actually win that fight.
The final stretch.
Because this is solo queue, not a lot of people like rotating for objectives or what have you. And the Dreadnought, I can't stress it enough how important first Dreadnought is for the game. That first Dreadnought generally gives you guys Unite moves, generally sets you guys up for the late game. I think after the first Dreadnought, you don't have to stress over them too much, because you can just sit here and force Rotoms. You really want to get that first Dreadnought. It really buys you guys so much time and so much success as you climb up the ladder. And again, when you're playing, it doesn't matter if you're playing Venusaur, whoever, be very, very careful when it comes to what lane you decide to gank. In other words, when you're coming into that bush at level 5 with red buff, if you're ganking a losing lane, it's not necessarily going to do anything for you. You always want to try to gank that lane that's winning. That way you don't get yourself killed in a situation, and you give, or you might give the any team your red buff and blue buff would have you the level advantage, and they end up securing Bs. You always want to go to the winning lane. This is the way I've been doing it, and it's been working so far for me. Now, most of the time when the lane is winning, you generally want to try to just get the Bs and get out. If you can get a kill as Venusaur when you're coming through with that first gank, good. If you can get that score down, good. If not, just get your butt right back to your jungle buffs, get your red and blue again, hit level 7, and you move on with the day. Get your Petal Dance, and you're already good to go. Now, when it comes to your Zapdos fights here, this isn't that difficult. 9 out of 10, if you're in a good position where you don't have to force these fights, you should be fine most of the time. But that all depends on how the random solo queue gives you your team and what have you. most Venusaurs that I see that you guys will see will try to snipe the Zapdos. But when you're running this tanky setup, essentially you could just run in there. I know that sounds stupid, but at the end of the day, they're not going to be able to burst you down right away just because of your items and how tanky you are. You are bulky, guys. Rocky Helmet is actually no joke on the right Pokemon. It sounds very, like, meh, the item does, but again, it gives you so much stats when it comes to bulky Pokemon. So, like, Venusaur, Blastoise, what have you, Pokemon that will benefit from that item is what Pokemon you want to run that item with. And I've had a lot of success running it with Venusaur. I've had a lot of success running Assault Vest. I think the bulkier setup actually does a lot better than running DPS. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your guys' build choices are. See what rank you guys reach to. In any case, it's been Pawseplays. Smash that like button, join that Discord. Talk to you guys later. I'm gonna head out.